Awesome, that bit's done. Uh, Welcome, folks. Awesome to see you all here. Thank you again for joining us. And before we do dive into our awesome session here today with Bonita, and before we start talking about your own personal development as people leaders, I just want to take a brief moment just to talk about your managers and say a really big thank you to our sponsor, More Happy. If you're not familiar with them yet, you need to go and check them out. They help turn your managers into better coaches by focusing on continuous development over one-hit training with on-demand access to over 100 ICF qualified coaches at a really genuinely ridiculously affordable price. Even better, if you're joining today and you have over 50 employees, you can get 6 free sessions for your managers. So feel free to use the link that I'm going to share in chat, and you can connect with the team there. Charlie there is on the call today as well as always. So give us a wave, Charlie. Say hi, and yeah, go check them out. But back over to you all. Let's talk about your personal development. Thank you again for joining. Really pleased to be joined by Bonita here today. I don't know, show me some like emoji reactions if you're familiar with Bonita. I know there's some like familiar faces for her in the room, so seeing some thumbs up, which is very cool. And yeah, very lots of hearts as well. That's really cool. So yeah, why are we here? I think like this. There's a few reasons why I wanted this session to happen. Number one, I was very lucky to be part of a cohort that Bonita ran. So maybe last year now. I think Bonita. I can't remember. It was last year. Um, and it was incredible. A cohort that I could be part of to help with public speaking, personal presence, audio brands, some amazing stuff that we're going to go through with you today as well. So I was desperate to find a way to help others get some access to that as well in a session like this. Mainly because we spend a lot of time here speaking to people leaders all day, every day, and we see this pain and challenge in a lot of the people community. People feeling like they don't have the confidence to build more personal presence in exec team meetings, in town halls. We see a lot of people wanting to build that muscle, but not knowing how and not knowing where they can start. So I thought this would be a really awesome session to help in a space where people maybe lack that confidence, frankly. And this could be a great starting point for that journey for a lot of you. So thank you, Benita, for joining us. I'm gonna stop talking now and pass the mic over to you and let you say hi. And yeah, by the way, folks, as well, just before we do that, there's some interactive stuff happening in the session. I'm going to encourage as many of you as possible, if you can, join in. Some of you might not be able to if you're in an office or something like that, but there is a little bit of interactive fun later on. So I encourage you to do that when it comes up. And yeah, enjoy. Oh, you're muted, Benita. One sec. There we
Starting to take this personally now, Adam. But thank you for the introduction and also for making time and space for all of these great people to come together and learn. And I know that for a lot of people leaders, putting yourself first often feels like the last thing on your list because it doesn't matter how much you want to invest in yourself, and we encourage other people to work on their self-development. When it comes to doing it for ourselves, there's an element of priority and making sure that we get the most out of it, but all these other things pop up. So, first of all, I'm so grateful that all of you have shown up today for you, because that's one of the most important investments that you can make. And there must be something about the standout headline of this little webinar that stood out to you. I know we did ask for them to come up in the chat, so please feel free to pop that in of why you were here. But I'll just quickly do a bit of an introduction and a share of my screen, and I will do the very typical thing of asking, can you see my screen? Because it wouldn't be a webinar without that. So thanks for the thumbs up there, Adam. Make sure all of that is moved. Brilliant. Now, we have got quite a lot to get through. So this is going to be a full download of information, resources, reflection, and to Adam's point, a bit of challenge as well. But I do ask you to just stretch a little bit out of your comfort zone if possible and try out some of these reflections and activities. So I'm sure you saw a bit around the introduction, and this is my great little Frenchie. I'm looking for names for my little mascot. So if you've got any great ones to give to him, then please drop them in. He features quite regularly. He's not my actual dog. My dog doesn't look like that, but I'd love to one day. We've got some great ones. Reggie, Albert, I love them. So the main reason that I wanted to look at things like around personal presence is because for so much of us, it's really difficult to show up without all of the noise, the overthinking, the worry, the doubt, and all of the things that can happen both before we share something, during sharing something, and then after we've shared something. And that sometimes stops us from being in the moment and being personally present. Now, the reason I look at a bit of a recipe is because we have to identify what the ingredients are that allow us to understand what goes into being personally present. Before I do that, though, I want to understand what it is for you that makes somebody be perceived as having a strong presence. What is it that you think they do differently that makes somebody influential in a space? Could it be that they have an air of confidence about them? Could it be that when they deliver, there's an element of clarity, that they speak and suddenly the message lands? Is there the calmness that it doesn't matter what goes wrong or what happens in that moment, they just seem to have a handle on it all? Or is it that how they deliver everything just creates this magnitude of influence that people are just behind them with every word that they say? So I want you to consider that all of these things are not personality traits. They're either skills or behaviors that people have developed over time that allows them to show up like this. These are parts of the recipe that we can learn to make sure that when we walk into that room, we give that same feeling. So I'm seeing a lot of them: confidence, charisma, influence. Absolutely. There's somebody who's also mentioned there that confidence of just showing up and owning the space. I love that one. So why do I call it a recipe? Now, you may be somebody who's into cooking or not. It doesn't really matter. You may be somebody who's more into eating. Either way, this should apply. Has anyone ever made a recipe in one place and it worked amazingly? You tried it. Then you went to a different location. Maybe you've moved countries. You got the same ingredients. You had everything down to a T as to what the recipe had stated, but it just wasn't the same. And like trying to recreate it, something wasn't right. Was it the oven? Was it a different temperature? Where did you get the tomatoes from? And were they not organic or whatever it might be? And it didn't matter what you did, you didn't quite get the same impact or outcome as what it had worked somewhere else. Now, the interesting thing is that communication kind of works the same way. Is we can have a whole collection of ingredients that go into the perfect recipe, but we have to be really aware of the environment that we apply those ingredients to make sure that we get the best outcome. So this is why I wanted to have a look at it as a recipe. And I don't know if anyone here, like I said, loves cooking or enjoys that whole experience of discovering new flavors and tastes. But I have a daughter, she's 9 years old, and she loves cooking the same way that I did as a child. And I noticed that when you get her to experiment with things and taste and try and apply, I'm trying to teach her how to overcome if it was too salty or too sour or too sweet or too acidic. And what we need to do in that situation to adapt to get the best out of the dish. And so much of this is a transferable skill that we should be applying in every day, where we have a look and we sense check and go, is this right for what we have right now? Do we need to adjust a little bit just to get that outcome? Now, when we look at what goes into the components of a great personal presence recipe, I want you to think of these parts that go into it. And I'll be sharing a little bit more around reflections and techniques for some of them. But the first one I want to start with is personal awareness. Personal awareness is knowing exactly how we show up in situations, how aware we are of the impact that our own language and presence has in the moment. Another one that I'm going to go into is around audio branding. Now, this looks at things like our tone, our pace, the energy that we have, the way that we use our body to help tell the story, and what message that creates. We also have structure. How do we put all of those busy thoughts in our mind into a way that we can structure the delivery so that it sounds just as good when we say it out loud as it did in our head? Now, I don't know about you, but often I go into situations and I'm like, oh, here it is. I know exactly what I want to say. And then I feel like there's a little squirrel in my brain that goes, how about this? And how about that? And what about this? And it goes off on all these tangents. And I just need something to bring that structure back. So I will share a framework with you so that we can just calm the squirrel in the mind. There's also elements of language, how we choose our words and the impact that some of those words have. But I link this also to that self-awareness. Are we conscious of the impact that the words that we choose have, both on ourselves and the audience that we're delivering to? And lastly, it's a bit about adaptation. Our environments change, our situations change, the people that we share things with change. And I'm pretty sure that everyone in this room knows better than anyone else how often that changes for you and how quickly you have to adapt to those situations. So let's start off. I'd love to know from a bit of an awareness perspective, what gets in the way of us showing up in our most authentic way? We have some choices there, and you'll see a poll that's just popped up on the screen. So I'm going to put that forward while you have a think. I want you to consider, is there an element of self-doubt? Do we have that inner critic, those imposter thoughts that will fill our mind in the moment? Is there a sense of anxiety, the weight of the potential audience, the stakeholders? Maybe somebody has arrived that you didn't anticipate being in there, or you just want to do a really, really good job and you care so deeply that actually it can be a bit overwhelming. The overthinking, the pre-overthinking, the during overthinking, the post-overthinking, that can really take up space. And then language dynamics. This could be how we communicate with our words. This could be different styles, different cultural elements. And all of these can add in a complexity that stop us from showing up as our most authentic self. So what gets in the way with you? Was there a comment there going, D, all of the above?
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of yes to alls.
Yes to all, right? That's fair. What a lot of you are probably thinking is it's situational. Yeah. Is that in some cases it might be the self-doubt. In others, there might be an element of the anxiety, and others, the overthinking. So this could be dependent on the situation and the environment, which I fully understand. If there's one that really stands out for you, then it's good to know if there is something that is leading to you showing up with that doubt. So what was it on the polls? Because I can't see, Adam.
Oh, maybe if I hit end, maybe that'll I'm gonna tell you before I hit end in case that just disappears. Uh
Oh, okay.
Pretty even split actually between the first three. That self-doubt, like 41% of folks saying like self-doubt, 31% overthinking, 20% anxiety, and then very small number on language dynamics. So like 7%, something like that. I'm gonna hit end. It might go into chat, who knows?
Who knows? We'll see the results either way.
So
Oh,
we
there we go. It did
there
share,
we
kind
go.
of. I like it. The self-doubt, that's a really big one. I refer to it as the imposter thoughts, not imposter syndrome. And there's a lot of context behind that, but I won't take up too much time with it. And they are thoughts that show up that create that inner doubt. And that's something which I would love to share some resources with you all afterwards. But it's knowing what it is that that stems from. So once we understand actually what gets in our way, we have to consider what our impact is of what we want to sound like. What is our version? And I hate to be cliche with books and say, what does good look like to us? Now, I'm pretty sure many of you have read that book, or it is potentially some language that you use in your leadership teams. But we have to know what that means. If you think about somebody who you love listening to, consider a TED talk maybe that you've listened to that had great impact. Is there a podcast that you actually really enjoy listening to? Is there someone on the radio that when they come on, you're like, ah, great, great show? Is there anything that stands out, even a colleague that you might really admire? Who have you put in there? Everything. Wait, 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 wait. I can't see my comments from Paula. What did they say?
Everything they say holds meaning, so it's intentional.
Oh, I like that. I've got good.
Raphael said, it feels very natural and unscripted, yet very on point. And Chris has said, it feels effortless.
Love that. Less is more with speakers, absolutely. Now, there's some parts that can even go into the way that somebody speaks. I don't know if anyone's ever had this before, but somebody who's quite audio sensitive, I'll often be listening to a podcast, and because of the way that they speak, I go, nope. It's almost like I just, my brain goes, no, I cannot compute. Nope, and can't hold it. And it's so interesting how some things sit really well with us and others don't. But knowing what it is that we enjoy about how somebody shares and shows up is quite key to knowing what our version of good looks like. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about all of these because I want to make sure that we focus on how you create influence. But a lot of it has to do with the pace, the pitch. If somebody's really high pitched, if they end everything on a high pitch, if they pause often or not enough. And all of these things create the rhythm and the musicality that comes from somebody speaking. I'm sure we've all attended a meeting where somebody was incredibly monotoned and shared everything in the same voice throughout, even if they said they were really excited to be here. That can be quite difficult to sit through, and that can make somebody engaging or feel like this is going to be a very long hour. Hopefully, you don't feel like that right now. There's elements of the emotion and the authenticity. Now, I like putting this one here because do you know how we all have this like AI radio, little bleaker that goes off when we see something, we go, ah, AI generated that. And I kind of feel the same when some people speak. You almost get this like BS radar that goes off and you go, that's not very authentic. That doesn't sound like you. Are you reading off of a script? Did ChatGPT write that? And the reason I say that is because so much of what we have is generated in the back end with AI, but we still have to show up authentically and with a real genuine passion. And when we see great speakers doing that, we connect straight away. So we have to find ways of ensuring that we create that when we speak. Body language, there's a lot to say about this, how we use our body to help move our message. It becomes the story behind, the visual story behind our words. But how do we become intentional with them? Does anyone feel awkward when they're speaking or presenting and they don't know what to do with their hands? And suddenly they're like in the pockets, out the pockets, crossed arms, hands up, busy hands. Okay, stop, hold your hands. Now you look like you're praying. Let's just breathe. So our body language can have so much impact on how we show up, and learning those skills makes somebody a great speaker. And lastly, bit of storytelling. We are hardwired to love a story and take people on a journey and create that vision in their mind as we share things. So these lead to being great speakers. Now I want you to consider about your own audio branding. Because there's parts of your branding of who you are that you are quite consistent with. Whether it is the hairstyle that you have, the color of clothes that you choose, the jewelry that you wear, the way your house is styled, all of these things you consider about your branding. If you think about businesses, they talk about branding, the colors, the fonts, the images, all of these things, because they have a way of getting people to feel something. But have we considered how people feel about our audio branding? Have we paid as much attention into our audio branding as we have our physical branding? Because when all of that disappears, all we have is the message of that audio delivery. So this comes from things like that tone, that pace, that energy that we share. And one thing I loved to let people know about is everybody has a communication signature, whether they're aware of it or not. What makes somebody influential, especially in the people place, is knowing what that signature is and how they're going to develop it over time. So being really aware of what your audio signature is. So I do want you to take a moment. What do you think your voice communicates about you? What do you think people would learn or know after interacting with you? Have we ever done a bit of a data analytics on our own message and delivery? Now, for most of us, the answer's probably no. Let's hope that soon that answer will be a yes. I feel like I want to go into Dear Gentle Reader. Now, do you remember in the beginning, Adam shared about interaction and challenge and doing something slightly uncomfortable? I've titled this 90 Seconds of You for You, not me. This is not me saying, could you please do me a favor and do this activity? Because it's not going to help me. I would like to challenge all of you right now to take 90 seconds of your life. That will probably be some of the most valuable 90 seconds that you'll invest in. And I would like you to do something practical, uncomfortable, but valuable. So, what is it? I would like you to choose a topic. It could be your favorite holiday, tradition, or even a recipe, a favorite dish that you love consuming. And it needs to be something you know a lot about, that you're genuinely passionate about. And I would really love if you could take your phone, because I guarantee that every single one of you have it within that much distance of where you are currently situated. Yeah, Charlie, look at you. Ah, I love them. Exactly. All the distractions are available. And I would love for you to set up your phone and just talk about your topic for 90 seconds. No script, no rehearsals. It's just you, naturally, talking about something that you love. One thing to remember, you're not going to have to share this with anybody. I'm not asking you to drop it into the group chat and you have 66 people critique your 90-second video. It is just you. Low stakes, high reward. So I really ask you to do this because this is a data review. Let's see how we show up with a bit of data. Can I get a, I'd love to just see what's the reaction, right? If you've got it, raise a hand. If you're going to do it, give me a thumbs up. I'd love to see it. If you cannot, yes, love those. If you cannot do that, because you might be in an office where you can't just randomly start talking to your phone about your favorite holiday, find something that you do have, whether it's a recording, a sales meeting, a all hands, or even a voice note that you try to send to a friend that you said this was going to be quick and now you're 4.5 minutes into a podcast of your day. I don't care what it is. Find something. So for 90 seconds, I'm going to ask you to get your phone, open, record. We are going to do a countdown on the side. Adam is my timekeeper, and you are going to turn off your cameras if you want to and invest in you for 90 seconds. Go.
Okay, that's 90 seconds up.
Thank you so much. I feel like we need that countdown music. Dun-dun, 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 doo. For
Next
anyone
time
not
I'll
in the
sing it.
UK, I was going to say, anyone not in the UK was just like, what was that? Okay, you did it. For those of you who did, I'm very proud of you. And we didn't actually lose anybody. So I was waiting to see the numbers of someone going, no, I tap out. I'm out. I'm out. So good to see that you remained, even if it meant that you were going to learn something. Now, I am so proud of you for doing that if you did, and if you found something that you could review a little bit later. What did we have there? I had to quadruple check. I was definitely on mute before starting. Yeah, I've had that before as well, where you think you are. I mean, the way that Adam's going, I might be on mute again in the next few minutes, so wouldn't worry about it. Now, I have a question. Because I know that as soon as I said that you were going to record something, you all went, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to watch it back. And I want to know, how do you feel about having to listen to yourself or watch it back? Would you rather watch yourself back or walk barefoot across Lego for that duration? Now, I'm also going to add in there a Barbie shoe because Lego is brutal, but anyone who's got a daughter, a Barbie shoe, another level. So, Lego bricks for the win, absolutely. Now, for most of us, we don't like doing this. We avoid it. It feels so icky. There's like a cringe to it, isn't it? Because in our mind, we think we sound like a certain way, and then we listen to it and go, no, that's not me. I was hacked. There's an intercepted right there. That's not me. And there's an element that I want you to think of here is how often do you do that? How often do you review your own videos and your own content and messages? How often do we sit and take time to really listen to how we show up? Now, I'm sure that for many of us, we don't because it feels uncomfortable, and I get it. But I have a bit of a question for you. Now, on the recipe front, right? Let's say you were having a dinner party and you invited people over, and I said to you, cook that favorite dish that you love, but you are not allowed to taste it at any point, not throughout, not after. You just have to serve the dish. Really hope for the best. How would you feel about delivering that meal? Probably not great. Yet, how is it that we expect people or hope that they will sit and listen to us and feel influenced and engaged and really look forward to what we have to share if we don't know what they're experiencing? How can we expect people to show up and hope that our message lands if we don't actually know how it sounded, how we might have looked, the words we chose? So, one of the most valuable things is to have a look at what they are experiencing. If it feels cringe for us and it feels like it's awkward and uncomfortable, you have to imagine that we are creating that energy for somebody else. So being aware of what that is one of the best things you can start to become comfortable with. Start to. I'm not asking you to master it, but look at it from an analytical perspective. So yes, we'll move on from the Lego bricks, but now, oh, take two of your challenge. I promise you, you'll love me for this. Later, maybe not right now. But there's three parts that I generally get people to review this. Now, for timing, we're not going to do all of them because otherwise Adam and I really awkwardly have to stare at each other for 5 minutes and we weren't doing that. So when I ask you to do these type of reviews, I'll ask you to do it in three ways when you're doing a bit more of a deep dive. One is listen only. Put it on as loud as you can, face down, and take in all of the words, the sounds, how much space we're taking up. Number two, watch it on mute. What is your face saying and your body saying when you're delivering a message? And then number three, watch them together and see if the audio matches the visual and if you're really getting people to connect and feel with what you want them to. Thankfully, today we just have to do one because we're going to be here for a long time. Did you think I put you on mute there? I'm just really, really good at the body language part there, Adam. You
That was
panicked me.
very impressive. Very good miming.
Oh, now he's muted himself. That's all right. I do want you to have a bit of reflection though. Again, 90 seconds. We're going to get the timer up because you've had it for 90 seconds. So your review should take the same amount of time. And I just want you to listen to it and watch it and say, what do I genuinely like? What felt quite unlike you? What had felt a bit awkward? And what would you love to develop? Now, the reason I say do this now is because I know what you're all like. I've been in HR and L&D for a very long time. I know you're all going to say, I'm going to do it. And then you won't. And then you'll disappear off to your endless to-do list and it will never be reviewed until iPhone decides to show you a memory of it in 2 years' time. So we are going to take 90 seconds of your life to watch and listen to it back. Adam is going to start the timer and you're going to review whether it's your own video or the one that you found. So I will awkwardly dance for 90 seconds while you do that.
Okay. Yeah, that felt faster that time. I'm sure to everyone's relief.
You know, for those who have left their cameras on while you do that, thank you so much because it was wonderful to be able to see all of your reactions as you were reviewing that. And there was one thing that I forgot to mention, which was please do it with kind ears and kind eyes. Now, anyone who has attended one of my cohorts before or training with me will know that I say this often. It's not about how self-critical we can be because we're quite professional at that. This is not what it's about. It's about looking at it from a review perspective as if it were a bit of data analytics. So please do it with kind ears and kind eyes. So, what stood out to you? I'm hoping that for many of you, you went, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, actually, because that's normally a response. I want you to consider what was the thing that you'd love to develop? Because the magic about all of this is we've learned to speak and communicate the way that we do, which means that we can unlearn and relearn parts that we might not necessarily love. Each of these are skills that can be adapted and learned. So once you know what they are, you can start developing them. Well, silence while I think. I didn't know I do that. That's good to know. There's nothing wrong with that. A bit of thinking is always key, Charlie. Now, I'd like to move on to the next thing that I'm sharing with you today. Like I said, we have crammed a lot into being able to upskill our people leaders. And I want to share a bit about structure. We spoke earlier about the squirrel mindset where we have all these great things and suddenly the squirrel just comes in and we go off on tangents. We add too many ums and ahs and suddenly we kind of go, well, let me just bring myself back. I wanted to share with you a very simple framework that's called PrEP. Because so often people will say to us, make sure that you're prepared, make sure that you prep, make sure you run through it. Have you done your prep? And it's great because it sticks in our mind. But in the moment, it would be great to have something to fall back on to help make sure that we remain in our structure. So the PrEP framework is something that you can apply either to in the moment, if you're sharing a thought or idea. It can help you structure presentations if you're wanting to share something with a group of people, Or if there are moments of feeling overwhelmed, it can help you come back into the moment. So the first P is around introducing your point. As people leaders, you're often having to share something quite substantial, whether it's a change, an influence, a initiative. Starting off with a really clear point up front can help us create attention and grounding of what we are here to share. The R is the reason. What's the reason it's important to somebody? Why does it matter to them? Why does it matter to you? This can help give you the context or the rationale behind it. Moving on to E can be, let me share with you an example. And this can be parts that you can weave in stories. It could be data, it could be illustrations, it could be a real life example, but it helps to create that flow of messaging. And the last P can be an option as well. It could be another point that you help to close off, whether it's solidifying the first one that you started with, or I know as people leaders that we love to do a bit of coaching and some questions and reflections. We can switch that over to a prompt where we can ask questions around how does that sound to you? What were some key standouts? Where does your mind go when I start to share this? And you can create elements of engagement and reflection with whoever you're sharing it with. Now, it's very simple. And that's the key, is that when we're in the moments of feeling overwhelmed, you can use it as a way to help guide yourself by going, let me get back to the point I wanted to raise today and share it. The reason this comes up quite frequently is da 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 da. Let me add in an example of where I've seen this happening quite a lot within the business. Da 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 da. Closing off or a prompt. Now, this can mean that it gives you structure and control when sometimes our mind doesn't feel like it is. If you had used prep in your 90-second video, what might have been different? How might your structure or messaging have landed if you had chosen to follow something like this? And I'd love to challenge you all afterwards when you have to go do the 3-step review to try doing a 90-second recording using something like prep. So that is a very quick one. Take a screenshot, write it down because we're moving on quickly, people. 3. I'll get your cameras out quickly.
With your permission, we might reshare some form of it afterwards anyway, as a follow-up. So don't stress if you do miss screenshots.
That's all right. We'll see. I don't know. Depends.
See how we feel.
See how we feel. See how much response we get. No, of course, I'm happy to do so. Our next thing is the words that we choose. Oh my goodness, the amount of people who I see apologizing for taking up their space has a huge impact on how we are perceived and how we show up. Now, this probably sounds familiar to many of you, and I want to look at how we can create these swaps because these swaps create influence and perception. How many of us start with, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll be really quick. Or, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I won't take up too much of your time. I know how busy you are." What does that do straight away as we go into sharing anything is that if we are apologizing and saying it needs to be quick, somebody might question how valuable it is. I'm so sorry to take up your time. Okay, well, is it not worth the time? Isn't that scary how we can just do a quick introduction and suddenly somebody has a different perception of anything we say after that? So instead of going in with, oh, sorry, I'll be really quick. Thank you for the space to ask this. Thank you so much for investing the time to understand this. As soon as we swap sorries for thank yous, your subject matter expert status expands. But it also allows you to know that it is worth the time, not apologizing for it. What about this one? Oh, this might be a stupid question. Excuse me? No more. We swap this with, I'd like to explore something I've been thinking about. One swap of nothing is a stupid question. And if we do that, we are getting somebody to think whatever we say afterwards, because we've used the word stupid, will be perceived so. Change the language. Oh, my favorite one. Does that make sense? Mm. And we always do it on a high. At the end of sharing something fabulous. Let's say you use prep, and at the end of it, you went, does that make sense? My eyes twitch. You must ask Adam how many times, if anyone else has sat with sessions with me. Oh, it gets me every time. Because what it does is, as we go up at the end, it sounds doubtful, that we doubt ourselves. Does that make sense? I don't know. Does it? Now you're asking me, should I reassure you? Are you not reassured? It should, does it? I don't know. And I know what we're doing is we're trying to test language and make sure that whatever we have shared has landed. So we swap it with, how does that sound? Let me know your thoughts on this. What were your key standouts so far? If I could spend a couple more minutes clarifying something, what would it be? Swapping those out makes a huge impact on how we create influence and how we have conviction behind our words and what we've shared. Not. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? No, no, no. Swapping, influence, subject matter expert. Oh, another favorite of mine. I'm conscious of time. I think I challenge every single one of you to consider how many sentences you start with I think. I think that would be a great idea. So what I think about this is, see, I was thinking that, so what do you know? If we are introducing and answering everything with and I think, it gets people to question, what do you know? What is the thing that you're really having conviction behind? We do this because it creates a safety blanket. Because if anyone challenges us or comes at us from a different angle, we go, oh, I was just thinking about, it's just an opinion. But when we go into something that we know we are sharing from a factual element with conviction that we want to influence, we mustn't go in with the I thinks. We have to start going in with, in my experience, where I've seen this work particularly, and going in with that. One of the best swaps. There's plenty others that we could go into, but again, I was only given 50 minutes. I do want you to consider which swaps will actually start to create an impact on how you show up as your people leaders. I know that there are times that there will be elements of opinion, and you can go in. I'd love to share my opinion on this. It's just where my thinking is going. And holding conviction with, in my experience, or where I see the true value of this, holds that for you and makes you have that influence. We have to,
Just,
just as I finish off,
so-
yes,
sorry, just
go
before
Adam.
we do move on, we had a quick question come in from Diana on the chat, which might be a cool one just to touch on. So she's just asked question from a non-native speaker. The sort of does that make sense phrase, is it not used to sort of make sure the other person understood what you're saying, like a polite way of saying, did you get it? And
Yeah.
I'll let you jump in as well, but I was going to jump in and say it absolutely is for that. But I know that there's times when I've asked that and I've been explaining something that's actually very, very simple and I know they have got it. Um, and it sort of feels a bit rude in my head to be asking whether it's made sense to them because I know it has. But I'm using that in that instance because I don't know how to wrap up what I'm saying quite often. So I end up finishing on this like question of like, does it make sense? Like because I haven't worked out how I want to finish the thing that I'm saying. So I've just thought I'd like touch on that because I think that's I don't use it in the right way often. But I like let you answer as well, Bonita, because you probably got a good thought on that.
Yeah, and it's such a great question. And what's interesting about it is, does that make sense as a learned behavior or a learned response? Is that if somebody isn't a native speaker, they would have copied whatever they have seen being done in the language that they are communicating in. So when we go into the does that make sense, whether they're asking or sharing all of the situations where you are delivering to a non-native speaker, the switch still applies. How does that sound to you? What stood out so far? How would you summarize this for me? I want to make sure that you've gotten everything that I've shared. What would you say was the key standout? And these are things that can just create better space for people. Because what generally happens is when we ask, does that make sense? One, people will naturally go to the answer that feels like it's going to have the best response for the person, because again, we go, does that make sense? Which gives a perception of doubt. So I want to make you feel good and go like, yeah, it does, but then leaves me with the doubt. And second of all, if you're in a group setting, we have to consider if there's elements of psychological safety, which is a whole other category. How comfortable does somebody feel going, no, it doesn't? So the question itself, I fully understand that we're doing it because we want to sense check how it sounds and has that landed, or does that translate into your reality, whatever it is. But are we actually getting what we want out of it? So what we can do is use alternatives and swaps and see what else we get from people. Always a good option to swap it out with. So thank you for that question. Hopefully that answered it for you. Brilliant. Let me go on to finishing up a couple of things before we go into some reflections and any questions that pop in. So while I'm finishing this up, if there are questions, please pop them in the chat and we shall answer them. But what I do want to consider is that we've covered lots of different things, the awareness, the structure, the messaging. We have to realize that there is so much about the situation and the audience that we have to consider. And I know that you are chameleons and adapting to environments consistently. But the same way that we would expect chefs to taste throughout a preparation of something, we would have to make sure that we're sense checking how we show up. So if we're doing leadership meetings, where do we adjust each of those components of our recipe to get the best impact? So we're going in with more conviction, more in my experience, more stronger structure. In team conversations, we might dial it down a bit and focus on empathy and warmth and tonality and prompting questions. In presentations, we might focus on the clarity, but also the energy. And in difficult conversations, we'll focus on our self-control, our pace, our calming, and how we are structuring the message. Now, I'd love to know from all of you about how you're going to challenge yourself with this learning. I would challenge you to do one of these for the next week. Pick one. You'll end up doing all three, but start with one. What is it that you are going to start really understanding about your ingredient to make sure that you have the best recipe? Is it going to be prep, structuring your thoughts and seeing how that works for you? Are we going to start swapping some apologetic language and going in with that influence of the subject matter expert that you are? Or not ending sentences with, does that make sense? And every time you do it now, you're going to catch yourself and you're going to see me in your screen going, what did you say? Because we have to stop doing that one. And the other one is the review. Are you going to really understand what that audience impact is and what they're experiencing to know what we want to work on? Because it's something that we can practice and build over time. Now, I have a saying, and it's not that practice makes perfect, because perfect is an unrealistic expectation, because no situation would be perfect. But what we practice becomes a permanent state of our communication. So whatever it is, whichever ingredient you feel would really make that way that you show up feel more authentic but influential, as you start to practice it, it will become a more permanent state of how you show up. So that was my whistle-stop tour of some ingredients and recipes, and I hope that you're taking away some little nuggets, as it were, to help you create more influence. Now, I would love to ask Adam a question, and if there aren't any in the chat just yet, because Adam's done elements of this, of how it felt to go through it and what stood out to him.
Yeah, this is I've seen this a couple of times now, obviously, and yeah, it keeps getting better and better. Like I think I found this really helpful. I'm still incredibly self-deprecating, by the way, so that'll never quite go. But like I think for me, the thing that I came away with was that I learned that I end up winging a lot of stuff whenever I'm doing like talks or panels or something like that, and I don't spend enough time preparing or practicing the thing beforehand. And I think coming away from the stuff that I did with you, I then sort of would practice like 10 times. And by the time I go in to do the thing, it's in my head. I know it. I'm a lot more comfy and it comes out a lot better. And it's such a simple thing, but I just took that for granted previously. So that was like something that really stuck with me. I think the other thing was listening to myself back. I do a lot of looms and like recorded videos in my job, and I am that sort of person who actually does sound quite monotonous and like grumbly, and I've got that sort of like gravelly voice at times, and so I have to like be a bit more intentional about how I sound. Um, so yeah, I now like will watch back looms before I post them and share them, and they're still not perfect, but they're much better than they were. Uh, so yeah, it's just a few like they sound simple in your head. Uh, but
Yeah.
actually just hearing it and doing it, practicing it, I think has made a world of difference for me. So we did have, I think there was a question of some, I think Pauline put a question in which you just say you couldn't really articulate it in a question, but if your personal brand is warm, open, friendly, you find it quite hard to change that because it might come across as though you're annoyed or defensive. I don't know if that's like is there any thoughts on that one, Bonita? How you might approach that?
Each of those components, and thank you for sharing your reflections, Adam. I think when we had done our training before, we looked at how often we spend time building the presentation, yet nowhere near as much time actually practicing the delivery, which means that something visual was more important than us. So that switch is great to see as still part of your adaptations and learnings. To Pauline's question, there's so many components that go into this that each has a dial. And if you had to imagine your gas cooker, let's imagine you had a stove top, and each of those were the five components that we focused on. Depending on the situation, some of them we dial up and dial down. And this shouldn't be about losing yourself. This is not about how we all sound the same and how we all say the same things. It's about how we look at each of those situations and say, what do I maybe need to dial down slightly if I'm having to deliver a specific type of message? Because I'm always known for being open and friendly and approachable. But when I have to do quite hard delivery of something, I'm almost shutting down, which makes it very difficult to interact and engage in those situations. So sometimes it's a case of just looking at which of those you have to dial down. But the more self-aware you become, the better you'll look at adapting those. The perception of annoyed or defensive, I often ask people about what evidence do you have that that is the interpretation that's being given. Is that so often people will be like, oh, I'm so worried the audience is bored. I'm so worried that they didn't see the time. They don't want to listen to me and all of these things, or I must seem so defensive or standoffish. What evidence do we have to prove that that is true? And often the answer is none. So do you remember those overthinking, imposter thoughts that we spoke about? If you're finding those and we've got a lot of assumptions, let's go back to a little bit of factual review. What do I have that actually proves that? Or am I projecting? Because it feels uncomfortable for me in that moment. So what can I do to make it feel slightly more comfortable?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonita. And we're just about out of time, folks. So I'm going to stop there and let you all have a breather before your likely next calls. But thank you for absorbing all of that. Thank you for joining in. I know that was we've never done anything that interactive before on one of these, so that went really well. And we are going to share all the deck and takeaways and all the sorts of stuff afterwards as well. So have fun listening to yourselves for the next few weeks. And yeah, good luck with it, and see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.